The next 5 weeks, I got something special for you. A few weeks back, I had a virtual event for the Microsoft subsidiary in Switzerland, where I was joined with Thomas because we tried a new format where I make the bold claims about Microsoft strategy and how we help customers. And then he actually brought hands-on demos of each of the claims I make to prove it and show you how it looks. So it's a 5-part series. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of it. And each individual episode is going to have a demo. And the reason why I split it up and spread it over 5 weeks is because it was a 90-minute event and I want to make sure you enjoy it and you actually have time to watch it all. So stay tuned, subscribe, follow me on social media to make sure you get the updates. And as usual, you can count on it. I post on Sundays. Thank you. Enjoy.
We like to welcome you to today's event about Azure Hybrid Innovation Anywhere with Azure. I'm super excited to be here and talk to you about the different areas of how Microsoft looks at hybrid, what is our strategy, what are our investment areas. Today, I'm joined by the legendary Thomas Maurer.
Hey, welcome. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you everyone for joining today. My name is Thomas Maurer. I work as a cloud advocate in the Azure engineering team. And my focus mainly is around Azure Hybrid and talk about Azure Stack and Azure Arc a lot in the last couple of days. And I'm honored to join Dave today for this hybrid session to do some of the proving points with some of the demos we're going to do. Before I joined Microsoft 1.5 years back, I was a Microsoft MVP and a cloud solution architect for one of the partners in Switzerland, and worked obviously a lot in the hybrid space doing Azure Stack projects, but also Azure governance and management stuff. So really excited for our talk today.
So when we look at customers' environment and what customers tell us, then you will notice that, I mean, you know that better than we do, it has become extremely complex. Depending on the company size, you have hundreds to thousands of applications. Our larger accounts have over 20,000 applications in their environment. And so when you look at this picture, right, your environment is so highly complex that you have VMs, you have databases, containers, you may already use serverless, then you have different programming languages, frameworks. You have a super diverse infrastructure from data centers, hosters, you have branch offices, different OEM hardware, and you may even have IoT devices. And then you have this cloud reality. And while many say they have a hybrid cloud strategy, for many companies, it hasn't been a strategy from day one. It has something that happened organically grown because Department A bought cloud provider A, Department B bought a different cloud provider, and all of a sudden central IT finds themselves in the position to be responsible to govern and secure this very diverse and super complex infrastructure. One personal story that this made it very real to me is when I joined Microsoft in 2012 as a technical account manager. They assigned me these accounts in Switzerland. So, you know, you go first day, you walk into a customer you haven't met yet, you try to present yourself from the best sides, you talk to them. And that's a true story. And so one of my first customers, they loved Skype for Business. They loved the product and they told me, man, if everything would work like Skype for Business at Microsoft, life in IT would be beautiful, would be smooth, it would be so much easier. Why can't you make all your other products just work like Skype for Business? And then, you know, a week later, you go to your next customer, and that customer didn't have a single good word about Skype for Business. He had many product bugs that we didn't want to fix. Nothing was running. They were super frustrated. Low customer satisfaction was very challenging to have a conversation because we do want to help them. And what is the difference between those two companies? It's not that the first company had better or smarter or more talented IT staff than the second customer. The fact is that all of these environments have grown organically so much, maybe through merger and acquisition, through other things, systems that needed to be integrated, that today it's almost impossible to see all the dependencies. And that complexity is a reality. Most of us don't have the luxury to start fresh and say, okay, if I were to design an IT environment for my company, this is how I would do it. We have to deal with that complexity. And so with that in mind, why do so many companies go for hybrid? Now, the top reasons why companies choose a hybrid strategy is multifold. So a lot of them have to do with regulatory and data sovereignty requirements, but some are maybe technical requirements, such like low latency that you really need. And so you need to bring the compute close to where the workload is happening or where you collect data. A lot has to do with application and data center modernization, or even business continuity and resilience, which is, we all experience that now in 2020, the importance of it. And, maybe you just bought a lot of hardware that you still invested in and you want to take advantage of this. So a lot of good reasons why companies go with a hybrid cloud strategy. And so when we look from Microsoft, how do we think about it from Azure? And so today we're focusing on Azure. We know hybrid is bigger with Office 365, Microsoft 365, Dynamics, and so on. But from Azure, how do we set the priorities of what we want to do? So one thing we're focusing on is how can we help customer in that complexity that spans across multiple clouds, spans across multiple places with a single control plane. And that's where Azure Arc came in, that we basically announced last year at Ignite. And that's where we really invest. How can we help to give you that single control plane, regardless of where resources are, so you can confirm that you are complying with the governance requirements that your company have or legally you have, but as well as secure the resources. Another area of investment is how can we bring you Azure services to any infrastructure? That could be an Azure service in another cloud, could be an Azure service in your hoster, could be an Azure service in your data center. But again, we understand you may already bought hardware and you still want to benefit of these cloud services, and you don't necessarily want to buy Azure Stack to make that happen. And so we're investing in how can we bring you the Azure services that you want to any infrastructure. But we also want to help you when you modernize your data center, and that's really where Azure Stack comes in, or how the hardware you have in your branch offices. So here we want to give you option that you can make the right technology choices for your company, and we're here to help you and empower you to achieve more. And super important, depending on industry and how far your company is how does that all translate into these edge scenarios where we have IoT, sensors, could be smart building as an example, as you're modernizing your how you work, the way you work, or even like how you modernize services to your customers to improve the customer experience and therefore loyalty and hopefully grow your business. And so these four distinctive investment areas from Microsoft are the big reason why so many companies around the world trust their hybrid strategy and use Azure to Microsoft. Just summarize a little bit of what we talked today about. And so as you're thinking of your environment, and just to go back again to that complexity that you have, right? You need options, and Microsoft were invested to take a step into that complexity. And while I know in Switzerland sometimes mission statements can be, not as much welcome as in other places, but to me it's really core. Our mission is to empower you to achieve more, and you see that come true with the product offerings we have. We don't just say, oh wait, you have hybrid? Oh, I have a product called X, and that's my hybrid strategy, or I have a product called X. We have a lot of products because we want to take that step independently of what your technology choices are. If you bet on VMware, there is Azure VMware Solutions that Thomas talked about it. But we're thinking about all these environments that you have. We know you have a multi-cloud reality, and that is bigger than even AWS, GCP, and Azure. You have Office 365, you may have Salesforce or other SaaS solutions. Then you have on-premises. That could be your data center, that could be your branch office, and you may have an edge. Most of you will have an edge, and depending on how far along you're more expert in there or not. And so from a Microsoft perspective, it's like, okay, if we put in the center the developers in the IT department and the operations team, how can we help the customer to manage, deploy, and really thrive at the edge on their own premises in any cloud and provide around it security through an identity service such as Azure AD, or again, Sentinel or the Azure Security Centers that allow you to lock down resources independently of where they live. That's what this is all about. It's about realizing your job is complex, it's not easy. And how can we help you with the historic growth that your environment has to be successful in your hybrid strategy? And so as you're choosing your cloud platform or your preferred cloud platform operator, just think about what do they do to help me around all of this for my developers, for my operations and security team. Now we see there were some more questions coming. I see there's a comment on the $1 billion investment. I can go on. We could talk another 90 minutes just about security. I'm happy you can look me up on LinkedIn and start the conversation there. But Thomas, would you like to have some final words before we close out here?
Yeah, so thank you very much, Dave. Again, as you said, there's much more to cover, right? This is not just limited to what we just showed, but I think we highlighted a couple of the most important things I want to show. Again, well, I think my key takeaway, as you mentioned, is that we don't think there's just one size fits all solution when it comes to hybrid, right? We know that customers have different needs. They have different positions, different integrations, different states of their journeys, and they need to have like different offerings, and that is why we have this portfolio of different hybrid products, and that is also why we do this huge investment. I also want to quickly highlight what Jason Sanders, he is the engineering lead of all the Azure services, said at Ignite back then. He basically said, like, we know that hybrid is not an end state for our customers. It's not an in-between state of for our customer until they moved everything to the cloud. It really is an end state for our customers. So a lot of our customers will take advantage of these hybrid services and not just use them to migrate, right? And we absolutely agree with that. And that is how we design and bring our services and solutions to the market.